Hi guys, good evening and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I will be discussing what I thought of the latest and very good entry to A Quiet Place franchise in the form of A Quiet Place Day 1, which came out in theaters starting tonight. I got back from a screening of it not too long ago. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Before I get into all of that with spoilers and whatnot, please be warned. This is a spoiler-filled review, so if you're not caught up, if you haven't seen this movie yet and you plan to watch it opening weekend at some point, you don't want to keep watching or listening to this review, as I will be discussing spoilers, plot details, character stuff, all that jazz. So, that being said, you have been warned. Let's dive right back into it. First and foremost, it wasn't the scariest film of the franchise. The first one is probably the scariest. The second one, we had a pretty good idea of what to expect thanks to the first one. But it doesn't take away the entertainment or the intensity that this movie has and gives off. I gotta say, I think the biggest surprise that came to me was that I was expecting a total role reversal in terms of, like, final girls are usually saved for slasher movies, and this was obviously not a slasher movie. This is a monster movie, but the final girl thing can still apply. I could have sworn we were going to see Joseph Quinn, Eddie from Stranger Things, die sacrificing himself so that Samira, Lupita Nyong'o, and the cat get away. But the exact opposite occurred. It turns out, as quickly established in the opening of the movie, Lupita Nyong'o's character, Samira, is in hospice dying from some unidentified form of cancer. And when you're in hospice, you're on your way out. Like, you've got days at most, if not a couple of days. So, of course, that's when the alien monsters show up to Earth and raise all sorts of hell for everybody, including those who aren't in hospice. So they quickly let us know our main character is dying. And it's interesting because her drive isn't necessarily to survive the events of this film. I mean, it's human nature to want to survive. But her goal is to just go get some pizza. And not just any pizza. It's pizza from a special place that her and her father would go to after he would be done performing as a pianist, playing on the piano at a nearby local jazz bar or something. And they did that for many years up until his death. And so I guess right before her death, she wanted to visit the pizza place they would always go to after he was done performing. Like, that's her whole goal for this movie, even when the monsters show up, and shortly after they've arrived, and even after she meets Joseph Quinn's character, Eric. She just wants to get some goddamn pizza. I mean, I think that's so interesting how the shift of focus for the first two films is survive, 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 and live. Where this woman is like, well, I'm on my way out, I'm dying, I'm going to get myself some pizza if it's the last thing I do. And I thought that was a really cool, interesting take on a horror movie character. Someone who's already dying, their fate is practically sealed, but they get to decide how they get to spend their final moments. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so by the end of the film, we pretty much get an off-screen death for her. Like, the monster appears out of nowhere right behind her as she willingly removes her headphones from the speaker she's listening to her music on, because she's going to die right outside the pizza joint that sadly had burnt to the ground. But she's going to die outside the pizza joint, knowing that her new friend and her beloved cat made it safely aboard that boat. So I thought it was a really interesting choice in terms of the narrative. We follow this main character whose fate is already sealed, but she gets to decide how she gets to go out. And it's a total role reversal, too. Usually there's a final girl at the end of the horror film, but in this case, our would-be final girl ended up being the one who gave her life and saved her friend and her pet. So glad the cat didn't die. I love cats, and I don't think anybody whether they're a cat person or a dog person, wanted to watch a cat die. Cat was a real highlight in the movie, actually. It was very well behaved, and my friend and I were commenting to each other after we watched the movie, that was one quiet cat. So it was exciting, it was intense, it was thrilling, not necessarily scary. There were two good solid jump scares. When we first meet Joseph Quinn's character, when he kind of bursts out of the water like that got me good. And the second one that got me good is when she wakes up in her apartment and it's a normal New York City day outside, and all of a sudden one of the alien monsters appear, and then she wakes up from fright. That one got me good as well. Surprisingly, it did not get my buddy sitting right next to me. I guess he either saw it coming or just reacted better to it than me. I don't know. But it did have some jump scares, but it wasn't the scariest film, and that's okay. Scary doesn't necessarily have to mean it's not a bad movie, and I'm not saying it's a bad movie at all. It was very entertaining, very captivating, exciting, all sorts of fun stuff to watch, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I plan on seeing it several more times. And I thought it was a cool universe tie-in to have Deejman Hansu appear again. This time I think we got his character's name was Henry, I think I saw that, or maybe it was in a featurette. I don't know, but it was cool to see him again, even though we kind of know what happens to him in the future. It was cool to see how he survived the events. Excuse me. Excuse me. It was cool to see how he survived the events of day one. And the other interesting thing I noticed about this movie as I was watching it, I'm like, boy, the trailers and the marketing were incredibly misleading, or there's a plethora of deleted scenes that didn't make the final cut. Because I think one of the reasons why the marketing was misleading is because Alex Wolff played a minor but important character, but one who quickly died off in the very beginning, turning off that generator. And obviously you can't show a big character death in a trailer, or at least you're not supposed to. So they had a substitute scene where somebody else was doing the same thing he was, and then they died in the trailer. And I think that was just to preserve the surprise of Alex Wolff being killed in this movie, which I understand and respect. I'm not complaining. It was just an observation I made. So it'll be interesting to see if this movie does have deleted scenes after it's out on Blu-ray and DVD, or maybe not. Maybe that was just for marketing purposes. Overall, I really enjoyed this film. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. If you're listening to this film review, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. What did you think of A Quiet Place Day One? Did you like it? Did you love it? Were you expecting more, expecting less? Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. A Quiet Place Day One is now playing in theaters. Check your local listings for time. It's a fun movie, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your night. And of course, until next time, what's your favorite scary movie?